This is Open to Work, honest conversations about looking for work, getting work, and what to do when there is no work. It's no secret that our industry is facing many challenges. That's why many of us are looking for work right now. To get a sense of where things currently stand and what, if anything, is being done to save and support Australian screen culture, I wanted to speak with Matthew Diener from the Screen Producers Association of Australia. Matt, thanks so much for your time today. Could you just tell us a little bit about what exactly the Screen Producers Association of Australia is?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Look, Screen Producers Australia, or SPA, as the acronym is the body representing all of the screen production businesses in Australia, and also many of the associated businesses in our industry. So that can include post-digital effects houses and studios, for example, but the main core of the membership are production companies.
As somebody who works within television, it feels like we're in a crisis, and I keep hearing that. But what does the data show? Is there actually a contraction around the amount of content that's being made in this country?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to give you a yes/no sort of answer on that one. In some ways, because it part of it is that the industry never stays still. It's a dynamic gig-based industry in which you go from project to project, and there's many factors that affect what part of the industry we're talking about. So there are sort of two definite speeds or two different lanes in the industry, one of which is the local industry creating work to local commissions or international commissions that come in, and that is up and down a little bit depending on where you're at in the cycle of different partners and different types of work. So we'll come back to that in a minute. The other part of the industry is a commission. It's not really commissioned. It's more servicing, usually American intellectual property that comes to Australia to shoot. Depending on what part of the country you're in, that has accelerated because of some stimulus that the federal government officially, passed. So for that part of the system that we look at as a sort of an eagle lens, that's working very well. Then if we flip back to the Australian stuff we talked about, there are ups and downs going on. One of the shifts, the sort of tectonic shifts that have happened for audiences and the industry as a whole is that people are no longer really watching the sort of linear programming that existed for commercial television, ABC, SBS sort of linear programming. Everyone has been increasingly behaviour-wise moving on to the internet for watching when they want to watch. And so that's shifted the audience and the revenues and all of the things that go with that. So if you are been working in light entertainment, connected to shiny floor shows or big reality TV programs, 7, 9 and 10 has been your home for those projects. They're looking for big shows that they can attract viewers into and hold them to time-based viewing. They are businesses that are challenged by the amount of change that's happening around them. So whether they can continue to do as many of those formats or the length of those shows or try their luck at all of them, that is the big question in the future. But certainly if you've been a producer and producing those shows, that's been an important set of relationships to manage and to keep working with. And you can see that they are challenged more than they've been previously. And the other streaming platforms have been a bit in and out of the market depending on who they are. Stan has been a pretty special and exemplary participant in the industry because they've really just knuckled down and said, we are the home of some great Australian drama and some documentary and some kids, to give them credit, but mostly, again, the big streamers do a lot of drama work. Stan is top of the heap in terms of the number of commissions and the activity that they do. I think they did 12 productions that came out in the drama report that Screen Australia issues. So you've got some of those streamers doing some incredible work, and some of them who might tell a big story about one or two shows, but in fact you look at the data and you go, actually, well, you've only done one at that last year, didn't you? But you're sort of acting as though you've done all this work and practice that might have been from 4 years ago for whatever reason when you were launching your service, and you haven't done much since then. And you would have probably a very different overall narrative for our industry if there was a higher and bigger level of investment from streaming services in this particular point in time.
I want to talk about that a little bit later, but just to sort of backtrack a little bit, one thing that I think is very interesting right at the moment is when I talk to anybody outside of the television industry, they're surprised to hear that
Mm.
there's a bit of a crisis happening at the moment because they're like, man, there's more
Right.
TV to watch than ever before. Like, how is it that you're looking
Mm.
for work when there is so much television being made? Do you think that as an industry, we're not good at talking about ourselves? And what I guess I mean by that is anytime that Telstra or Qantas lays off 300, 500 staff, it makes the news. Whereas outside of our
Yeah.
bubble of television, nobody really knows about this. That's the sense that I get. So we're just not good at talking about our industry outside of our industry.
I think there's a couple of factors to that. And I don't disagree with you, but I think there's some challenges sometimes in how and who has the narrative of the industry. So the businesses that are well known to audiences, effectively the Telstras, because they interface with audiences, are the platforms 7, 9, 10, ABC, SBS, Netflix, Amazon, those guys. They will constantly be wanting to tell an audience that there's incredibly great, amazing content at their disposal. They may or may not be highlighting the Australian element of that, but they'll certainly be putting whatever program that's available on, if they're wanting to send a message on bus shelters, on skywriting, on various things. And it's that you've never had, as an audience person, as much content available to you at any moment in time. So you've got a set of platforms talking to audiences because that's their job. You know, that's delivering to audiences. They will not be sitting around saying there's a crisis in the industry because they are the people who commission the work. So they're never going to be the ones saying to an audience that there's any problem with the production industry. Far from it. They'll be saying everything's smooth and fabulous and wonderful. It's true that there was a burst of energy that happened when a lot of independently of requirements around regulation and other things, but from when platforms launched, they were wanting to launch with new programs, and so there was a heating up of the industry, a boom that was happening ahead of what was a crash, really, that created by the writers and actors strikes in Hollywood. But there was a boom happening because every over-the-top service like Paramount Plus or Disney were launching with new programs. And so from an audience point of view, you felt that there was a lot of activity. And true also in Australia, there was a lot of new activity that was happening for various reasons. And there's a lag to that, right? So some of the shows that are winning awards this year at, say, the ACTA Awards in recently were actually made, like I think Boy Swallowed Universe for Netflix was made in 22. So in other words, some of this production activity happened quite a few years ago, and it is being released and available to people and getting awards and being reshown in a world of abundance, so that people might only get to it later, but it was made before. So what you're seeing and feeling, or the industry's seeing and feeling, is the canary in the coal mine sort of stuff, where it's like, hang on, we're all out of work now, or we're not all out of work, but
Yeah.
we're not seeing the same abundance from jobs and activity, and the audience might not see that for another 2 or 3 years because of the lag of delivery and production and execution and whatever it is. So I'd say that that's part of the issue. And I'd also say that the industry, going back to your first point, the industry isn't good at sort of screaming help on some level, because it's gig-based, relationship-based, business-to-business-based work. So if my members and production companies are struggling, they will tell some people, including me, maybe in confidence, but they don't want to be putting that on the top of the tin and being sort of talking about crises of the industry, because that doesn't bode well for either their sense of reputational piece, or their capacity to build the next relationship or partnership with another commissioning business in the future. You're only ever as good as your last bit of work. So you're trying to build the confidence for when that next bit of work comes. And the same for individuals that might be out of employment. You know, there's a lot of bravery put on around people that are looking for their next gig. You know, you're not walking around saying, I'm out of work, I haven't worked for 6 months or whatever. You're just being positive and engaged, and the show will go on, and and you're trying to be busy. So there's a challenge where the truthfulness of what is going on in the industry isn't always easily communicated. One of the things that happened this week was that Screen Australia launched a bit of surveying work, which we were pleased to see them do, because they haven't really been in the market asking people about how they feel about Screen Australia or the industry much. That hasn't been the project that I've seen for quite a while from the agency, and it's good that they did it. And you can see that some of the data that's been released, it was very recent, but it has information there about what people's feelings of risks are to do with job security or project finance, and it's quite a large group of people very concerned about job security and project finance and raising and supporting the type of work that they're trying to do. But there's also a lot of optimism still, because in order to do the type of work everyone's doing, to get out of bed and stay in this industry and not move across to, say, I don't know, accounting firms working for, I don't know, whatever it is, or another part of the economy, you've got to be an optimistic sort of go-getter, right? You've got to wake up going, today's a new day. We're going to get this done. I'm going to crash through that. I'm going to write that thing. I'm going to be positive and engaged with that audition. So there's a type of person that's attracted to this industry that's very much we'll get things done. We'll make it through. We'll be optimistic about the future, even if the metrics suggest that there's more of a problem than maybe exists.
My chat with Matthew Diener was so great that I'm actually going to split this interview up into 2 portions. So join me next week when we talk about the attitudes of Australians towards our own screen culture.